About 10 years ago, my best friend stole about $20,000 from me. That $20,000 that I got stolen from me probably made me millions of dollars over the last decade. In this short video, I'm going to share with you that exact story, but also the two main lessons that I learned from getting that money stolen from me that allowed me to not only make more money, but also keep the money that I made. If you don't want to have to lose the $20,000 to your best friend, watch this video and you can still gain the insights that I had to go through. So before I go into the details of what happened, how did I get the $20,000 stolen from me, and what lessons did I learn, I kind of want to go back to the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey so you know kind of where I was at, how I got there, and how I was able to now have multiple seven-figure businesses in industries I knew nothing about. And it all kind of started from the point where, if you know anything about my story, is I went to college, I went and got my safe and secure 9-to-5 job, and then I just realized I hated working for somebody else, and I knew I was going to be miserable if I was sitting in this cubicle for the rest of my life. And luckily, I was actually fired from that safe and secure job, and that's kind of what pushed me on the trajectory of trying to create financial freedom and, this entrepreneurship journey. And basically what happened, after college, like I said, I got this safe and secure job, and when I got fired, all I cared about, all I focused on was, how do I create financial freedom? Because I never want to be in a position again where I'm sitting working for somebody else that does not care about my life and does not care about what I actually want, and I'm being paid basically whatever they tell me I'm worth. And I just hated that feeling. So that's what happened the next basically 4 or 5 years, early in my 20s. All I cared about, all I focused on was, how can I make more money? How can I create financial freedom? And literally, I never went out. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I didn't party. I didn't do anything other than focus on, how can I make more money? And I was literally, that's how I started in door-to-door sales. And that's when I started investing in real estate. But also on nights and weekends, I was bartending. So I was doing everything I could to make as much money as possible and make investments so I could never have to work for somebody else ever again. And about, like I said, 4 or 5 years into this is when an old middle school and high school best friend kind of showed back up into my life. And that's kind of how I went on this journey. And basically what happened is, like I said, all I was focusing on was making more money. And I didn't know anything about anything else because I didn't go out with anybody else. So at this point, I had bought an investment property already, and this was the second property that I had bought. And my friend kind of reached out to me and said, hey, I see you're doing some investment properties. I know you have your insurance agency, all this other stuff. I do construction. I would love to partner up and help you with some renovations and things like that. And I said, oh, that sounds great. So that's what happened. My second property that I bought, I was planning on moving into the second floor and renovating the first floor and renting that out, just like I did in the first property. I basically just did that and was doing it again. So he started working with me, and we were doing some basic renovations, and we ended up doing a lot of stuff for the first floor. And he ended up basically saying, like, well, why don't I just move into the first floor? I'll pay you rent, and then now anytime that you get a new property or something like that, I'll just work on it, and we'll be partners in a lot of stuff. I said, oh, okay, that sounds great, because he had done some decent work, and I was like, all right, well, now I have a tenant. That sounds good. So I was actually, like I said, living on the second floor, and he was living on the first floor. And for the first couple months, everything was good. And then eventually the rent kind of started showing up a little bit late every month. And I didn't say anything, and, just who I was at the time. And then eventually, a couple months later, he was like, hey, why don't we get a new property and we'll start a business together, and I'll start doing jobs for other people, and then you'll make a percentage off of the jobs that I make, and we'll do all that. So I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds pretty good. I'm like, I definitely wanted to get into construction, but I didn't want to have to do the manual labor myself. So that's the first kind of error of my ways, is I gave him basically like $10,000 to buy a work truck, to set up the LLC, all this other stuff. So he did all that, and then at that point, I actually went and bought a triplex, so my third investment property at this point, and I knew that I was confident, I thought, in the fact that I had a hard worker and was going to be able to help me renovate this property. And we had just started this construction company, right? So I bought this triplex, and it needed a lot of work. It was a complete gut job. I still own the property today, but it cost me a lot more than what I wanted to spend on renovating this property. But I remember at this point, I had the first vacation that I was going to go on in last like 5 years, right? And it was a big like Mediterranean cruise for 2 weeks. And I was super excited, especially for the fact that I knew that I had this, guy I could trust, that he was going to go into the property I just bought, and he was going to help renovate it. And by the time I got back, life was going to be good, and the property was going to be renovated to at least a good degree. And I didn't have to worry about anything while I was out of town. Well, as I'm sure you are aware, basically what happened is I gave him another close to $10,000 to renovate the triplex, to do a lot of work. And by the time I got back from the Mediterranean cruise, he was gone. So he wasn't in the apartment anymore, and the money that I gave him was completely gone, and nothing had been done to the property. So at this point, $20,000 was a pretty decent chunk of change for me, and I was like, well, what just happened? I'm like, how did, one of my best friends just basically not do the work he told me he was going to do, and then on top of it, basically just stole the money from me. And I was pretty hurt, and that's when I learned the 2 lessons I'm going to share with you today. And basically the first lesson that I learned was the fact that I was not confident in myself, because all I was doing was focusing on myself and money, right? I didn't actually care about anything else. I didn't focus on my health. I didn't focus on my mentality, didn't focus on my physicality, anything like that. All I cared about was making money. And my confidence in who I was as a person was at a very low point, because I wasn't going to the gym. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't taking care of myself. And I was easily taken advantage of because I was very timid. He was a bigger guy than me. He was, I still had this mentality of just weakness, and I couldn't stand up for myself. So when I knew things I was already being taken advantage of, I kind of just let it slide, right? And that's the first lesson I learned, was if I want to be taken seriously, I need to take myself seriously. And that's when I started going to the gym every single day. I took my physical fitness to a serious point of my life. And I also worked on my mentality. I worked on, how can I be a person that I take seriously, that other people take seriously, that when tough times do occur, I am ready to handle that as a man, right? So that first lesson that I learned, because I basically never stood up for myself. When I knew things were already going south, I couldn't stand up for myself because I didn't have the confidence in myself. And that lesson has kind of been one of the greatest lessons that I learned, because now every single day I continue with my fitness routine. I continue with my mentality routine. I continue on this path of growth. And I feel confident in who I am, so I can tell people when, hey, I don't think that is right, I feel confident in saying, no, let's not go that way. Or, yes, let's do this, because I know for sure that's exactly what I want, right? So you're no longer swayed by what other people tell you, because you have a direction and confident in that direction, right? So that's the first lesson I want you to take from this, that even though money is important, if you do not have the physicality and the mentality to handle the tough situations when they do occur, then you may be taken advantage of, like I was, right? So that's why I'm trying to tell you this, so you don't have to go through the same lesson that cost me $20,000 and a friend. So that's the first lesson I learned. And then the second lesson was the fact that sometimes people are just not headed in the same direction as you, right? And this is where it took me a while to learn this, because I always wanted, to help people kind of come with me, right? All I cared about, like I said, I give the analogy of most people are underwater, right? Society puts us in a place where, you're underwater, right? Underwater financially, underwater physically, underwater mentally. And your job is to swim out and create and break free, right? You want to break free of the constraints of what society puts on you: financial burden, financial freedom, mental freedom. Just basically get out of your own head of what everybody else cares about, what you do, and then also like your physical freedom. Like, you want to have a good, healthy body so you can move around, right? So you want to break free. You want to swim out of the water, right? And I give that analogy because most people just don't even want to leave the water, right? They just want to feel comfortable in the water. Water's comfortable. I'm sitting here, I'm floating around. It's good, right? I don't want to leave, right? And that's fine. And you can't push people to get out of the water, right? But also, secondly, if you're surrounding yourself with people that not only are not trying to get out of the water, but they're also trying to keep you in, right? So if you're trying to swim out, right, and somebody's holding on to your ankles, how easy is it going to be able to swim and get out of the water? It's going to be pretty difficult, right? So that's why I said the second lesson is understanding that people are not everyone's in the same direction as you, right? And that's fine. But also understand that if you allow those people to pull you down, it's going to be very difficult to try and get out of the water with those type of people surrounding you. So yes, of course, people always talk about who you surround yourself with is very important, but they don't talk in a way where it's not only the importance of allowing them to not hold you down, but understand they exist, right? And not try and pull them up with you, but also, how can I find the people that are swimming in the same direction as me that want to push me? Because when the current is coming and everybody's going in the same direction, it's a lot more motivating, right? Than, hey, I'm going south or north, right? And everybody's going the different directions. It's very difficult. So that is the second takeaway that I got from this event that cost me over $20,000, that I needed to find the people that were heading in the same direction as me, and not necessarily have to cut everybody else off that's not going that direction, but just understand that if they're not going in the same direction, it's not my job to change their direction. It's my job to focus on how do I limit the interaction with those type of people and not let that interaction pull me down and continue on the path that I'm on, right? So as long as you know that and know the path that you're on, life will be good. So I hope these two lessons didn't cost you $20,000, didn't cost you a friend, and you can gain some insight from something that happened to me that allowed me over the last decade to really create a life that I genuinely am so thrilled about, right? And I would have never thought this was possible. The life that I have now, I would have never thought was possible. But these lessons that I learned helped me not only make more money, but also create an aura of who I am, of a person of value. I value myself. I value my word. I value the things that I do. I treat people with respect, and I make sure that life is on my terms, and my terms is creating whatever I want, right? And helping people along the way that want to be helped, and not focusing on the things that I can't control, right? So if you thought these short little lessons were important or valuable to you in any way, please, like, subscribe, comment below if there's something else that you want to learn about how I, got from where I was to where I am today, because obviously I can't share all the details of what's happened over the last 15 years in one video. But if you are interested, please comment below. I genuinely want to share some insights that helped me along the way. And if you have questions, please leave them below. And if not, I will talk to you soon.